Hey, folks, we're here talking Florida State football. Of course, it's Wednesday, 6 o'clock Eastern time. Gather around, pull up, and leave your comments and questions. We'll get to them. Consider the super chat option as well. Please support us here, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. The only thing I ask there is that you let us know that that's for the Florida State show. And, of course, front and center here, we got Georgitis. The Renegade Report is your place to be. It's blowing up. So get in on the action and get in on Florida State football, especially with spring football on its way. George, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Enjoying this summer afternoon here in the state of Florida, which, it's it's only the very beginning of March, but this weather's something else. Today we got a heater. It's 80-something degrees. You're running the AC all day, so just enjoying it. Like you said, a bunch of big dates coming up in Florida State football nation. You've got March 19th, as you alluded to. Spring camp begins March 22nd. You got a North Carolina court date, April 9th. You've got a Florida court date, April 20th. You've got your spring game. So, yeah, with recruiting, all these different things, the next month is going to be a lot of fun. And I think the action's going to pick up a little bit over kind of Florida was a bit of a slow pace there, or not Florida, excuse me. February was a bit of a slow pace there when it came to college football news.
In terms of college football, not necessarily the legal portion of it. That seems to be going all the time. But I did not check on the temperatures in Florida, but I should have guessed if it's in the low 70s in Ohio in the middle of the winter. That's crazy weather. So it's got to be warm down there. Very nice. Let's talk about what is a point that I will say all of you guys have made here in the last several weeks concerning the Alabama opening and the interest that Alabama had in Mike Norvell. And Chris in particular, I think, has led the charge in regards to his inside information on how close and how much Alabama wanted Mike Norvell. And here we have the Tallahassee Democrat and others reporting today more details about that. So no big surprise to you, but it's just confirmation as to this guy's a pretty good football coach.
Yeah, without a doubt. When all that stuff was going on, we talked about it. Me and Jen did on our show. Chris is one of the very best. He's probably the hottest thing on FSU YouTube right now. He kills it. Jen also, like, if there's one area she has sources, it's to do with coaches. She's like, I've got to learn to not argue her takes when it comes to coaches because she knows a couple people. And we talked about it on the show quite a bit, even though, some people don't want to believe it and this and things. It's just kind of a rumor till, like you said, somebody comes out and does a big story like that. It really adds validity to it. But 100%, Mike Norvell was high on Alabama's board. That's somebody they prioritized. But Mike Norvell, what he wants is to stay at Florida State. He wanted the leverage out of it. He got a big time raise. You get to $10 million, but what he's built to this point, everything they put in, he's just so confident in what the plans they've set for the future. That luckily for us Florida State fans, he stayed put. But there's an alternate reality out there where Mike Norvell accepts that Alabama job, and you never see Kalen DeBoer over there. It's pretty amazing. Another element of this is that Florida State, Michael Alford, these guys are going to have plans. Say Mike Norvell was to take that job, because there was, interest, whether there was ever a particular offer made or anything like that. I don't believe so, but there was interest there, especially heavily on the Alabama side. So there's rumors out there that maybe Florida State was sending feelers out towards Lane Kiffin as being a possible replacement for Mike Norvell. I wouldn't doubt that for 1 minute. And to the chagrin of Ole Miss fans out there, I've been, kind of taking some heat today. If a job in Florida, and I'm not trying to be a homer here as a Florida State fan, it could be Florida, it could be Florida State, it could be Miami. If one of those three jobs opens up under decent circumstances, Lane Kiffin is going to take a long, hard look at that. I don't think he has any kind of undue loyalty to Ole Miss or the state of Mississippi. So, yeah, that's where I am on that. I really believe that there's a chance you could have ended up with that And it would have been really funny if that would have all unfolded to see the UF fans have to react to Florida State picking up Lane Kiffin as they finish out their final year with a lame duck. But that would have been a home run if that you know hypothetical situation would have unfolded and Mike Norvell would have been Alabama. That would have been a home run to get a Lane Kiffin to come in there, given the state of the program. But the grand slam is keeping Mike Norvell right where he is, keeping the continuity at 100%. And it's just amazing to see how far his name has kind of come. We've had some true believers over the past 2 or 3 years, but it's kind of spread all the way to the national media now with this latest story, pretty much. There's
So
not
George,
much more validation until you see a national championship at this point.
so George, it sounds like you already answered my question, but to redirect your brain is a little bit difficult to do. But it sounds like you've gone there. If Mike Norvell would have taken that job or would take any job, you would be pretty happy with Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. I think Lane could thrive at Florida State. I don't know if he would be my first choice. I'd have to really sit down and think about it. But at the end of the day, you could do a lot worse than what Lane Kiffin has done at FAU and then go to Ole Miss. And I think this is where the confusion, like, I don't know if it's recency bias or just the really love for the SEC conference, but to go from Ole Miss to FSU, the resources he would have and the ability to recruit, like if his ability to bring in talent at Ole Miss is one thing. If he got to FSU, it would be a totally different level. Just kind of the competition of, the area you're in. Florida State's logo just carries a different kind of weight. I'm not trying to diss a fan base, but when you win national championships and things like that, especially recently, it's just a different deal. So I wouldn't be the end of the day. It's not my ideal candidate, but when I sit here and I think about coaches around the country that if you had to pick from, Lane Kiffin is a pretty good one. I would love to have Dan Lanning, but he's in a different spot in his career. I don't, after this past year, if he was going to go somewhere, seems like maybe it would have been that year. Seems pretty locked in at Oregon. So if you're going to make a short list of coaches, I don't know, how many people do you have over Lane Kiffin right now?
Yeah. Oh, I have high regards for Lane Kiffin. I think he's learned a lot. I think he's always been extremely talented, gifted, always could scheme up the X's and O's and knew what he was doing there. But then he's matured as a guy that leads a program now and a top 15 or 20 program in the country. I think I can speak to this, hopefully knowledgeably concerning any program in the country to a certain extent, but even more so Ole Miss. I was down there for 7 years covering Ole Miss games. So I was at the news conferences. I was at the games. I covered Ole Miss football on a daily basis for 7 years. And it's been a while. But to your point, it's a nice program. It's a great area. Mississippi per capita produces almost as many NFL players as any state in the country. But the problem is it's per capita and it's a small state and the resources are limited. And again, Ole Miss is a great school. And they got a really nice football program, but he may have maxed out what they're able to do there. We will see going forward. To your point, we've seen Bobby Bowden finish in the top 4 in the country 15 consecutive years. We've seen national championships on 3 occasions. Ole Miss hasn't sniffed a national championship in 60 plus years. And I don't know that it's capable of doing that. So we're just talking about different levels of 2 programs, and Ole Miss is not that far away. We're not talking about Vanderbilt, but still, I don't think there's much of a debate there. And again, college football fans are a sensitive bunch because they love their sport and they love their team. So they get offended. And I get that. And everybody wants to be number one and everybody wants to be considered elite, but that's just not reality in some places. So that's just what it is.
Absolutely. I love the way Mike Norvell handled the entire situation too. There was no big thing. After a year or two of Jimbo Fisher, it seemed like every single year there was a huge contract dispute. So I thought it was pretty well handled, through Jimmy Sexton and all the works behind the scenes where there was a little bit of interest. Mike Norvell got his raise and that was it. There was no hangups. There's no question of where Mike Norvell wants to be. And for Ole Miss, they got Lane Kiffin for another year. We'll see what he can do. And that's not to say Ole Miss couldn't break through and win a national championship, and I'd be happy for them. It's just like you said, when you really zoom out and look at two programs for what they've been the past 30 years, you can't argue Florida State is one of those top 10, and some like myself would argue top 5, but I can be fair here and say top 10 programs.
I'm curious to hear the answer to this one. So let's take it all the way back to Jimbo Fisher. He wins a national championship. He goes to a playoff. He has another good season or two in 2015, 16, 17. They had a lot of talent. We never know what that team could have accomplished. Of course, they lost their quarterback, DeAndre Francois, on opening night in a competitive game against Alabama. They got away from him in the fourth quarter. The season, if you really look at the results and watch the team play, they were this close to having a really nice record, lost a lot of close games. Anyway, he takes off after 7-6 in 2017. There's still a lot of talent on the roster, but then the whole deal becomes dysfunctional. Willie Taggart, we used to have somebody on this show, our buddy Jason Parker, who used to defend Willie Taggart to the hilt. Okay. Yes, I will agree that 21 games, I think that was the number, 21 games is not typically enough games to evaluate a coach. However, I think it's been proven before and definitely proven since Willie Taggart is not the level of Florida State or that type of job. That's just all there is to it. It's a great guy and did his best, but just not able to make the move. So Mike Norvell takes over a program that's in his worst state in 50 plus years, and it takes him time. And I would never get on here and claim I knew Mike Norvell was going to be a great coach. I've never stated that in any such way. But while they were taking their lumps the first couple of years, I was saying, hang on here. He took over in 2020 during COVID. He couldn't communicate to his team. The level of change that you have to implement when you take over a major football program in terms of new offense, new defense, relationships, terminology, culture, your own way of doing things. You're trying to do this over, Zoom links, and it's just, yeah. And then you only play 9 games, and then you get into the next year and they played some good football, but they blew some games. They go 5-7, the whole deal. So I defended him, not to say I know that he's going to be great, but let's hold off. So my question to you is, when did he sell you? At what point did you think, okay, this is the guy, he has sold me?
Yeah, you brought up a lot of great points. I think we might have kind of talked about something similar to this. When you go from Jimbo Fisher, when he left, you only really had the kind of one tough season. But if you were a true Seminole fan, and that's all I was at that point in time, just a fan, like the writing was on the wall. The guy had recruited 1 offensive lineman, I think, like 2 recruiting classes in a row. We had no offensive lineman left. The one good offensive lineman left transferred. Went to Alabama and won a national title. So it was really tough times. And then you get Willie Taggart in, and to your point, he was only there for 21 games. I agree. Like you can argue, well, look at the records. You could have fired Mike Norvell after 21 games. But it wasn't so much the record as how the games were going down. Willie Taggart was getting blown out 52-10, whatever the case may be, to Miami. Or Mike Norvell has got the 41-13 or game with 4th and 41, whatever it was. I'm drawing a blank on it, but bam, you beat Miami. You go on to win 5 games to end the season. Jordan Travis is on a hot streak. He looks like a top quarterback in the conference. So there's just different feelings around it. And like you said, COVID, not being able to recruit for 18 months, basically like a normal program would, was a killer. Not really getting to be around your team physically to really figure out who the guys you can trust are and who the people that are going to cause problems, all those different things. It's definitely not apples to oranges or apples to apples. It is apples to oranges when you try to compare the first 2 years for different people. But I would say it was the last kind of 6-7 games of 2021, where you really started to see him build an offense around Jordan Travis, and the team kind of just it really learned how to win. And that was second half of that season. That's when I was kind of all in on Mike Norvell. And then, that LSU game happened, and you never look back after that. Kind of affirmed everything you wanted to see in that first game, really the first 4 games of 2022.
Jackson, the Jacksonian, is in here with a vengeance tonight. We appreciate you dropping all the various links to the Renegade Report and to everything we've got going here at the Voice of College Football. Jackson, thank you for being here. We appreciate your support. We know that you're always here for us, so thank you so much for that. Did you get a chance to see much of the NFL Combine?
Oh yeah, man. We were locked in there for the 4 days of the Combine, but Florida State was only involved in the first 3. They switched it up this year to where it was just offensive line on the final day. But yeah, Florida State absolutely balled out at the Combine, really across the board. I guess we can start with the fastest 40 times. The fastest 40 time of the whole bunch is going to be Jerry Jones, I believe, with a 4.38. The Florida State slot nickelback. Just had a big time senior season. A guy that was at Florida State for 4 years, took a lot of heat early, had a big time year. He's all ACC, goes to the Combine and puts on one hell of a performance. Like I said, he runs that 4.38 40. I believe he just made one pass and was able to walk it off after that and made some big time hay. It wouldn't surprise me to see him end up work his way towards the front of the 3rd round, possibly get in the 2nd round. And that's a common theme, as we kind of, if we're going to go through all the 12 names of guys, because they really, really made up time. Right behind him was Trey Benson with a 4.39 for your second sub 4.3 40 at the Combine. And Trey Benson, when you look at the drills, the on-field work, where they've got him catching these slant routes and little halfback angle routes and out routes and things like that. I know I'm stealing from this guy. I wish I knew his Twitter handle, but he said, that was the Trey Benson money drill, because basically it just looked like the drill was made for him. He just absolutely shined in on-field work. Like I said, the 4.39 40. So, bam, he made some big time progress towards getting himself a check too. It's rare that you see a 1st round running back in this day and age, but when you look at them different scores, I'm not sure exactly what it was called, ARS score, something they had, the advanced data set there. He was in the top, I think 88th or 90th percentile of running backs, since 1987 or something like that. So really a beautiful job by him. And I wouldn't, again, be surprised to see him be in the 2nd round, possibly break into the 1st. And after that, I want to say it would go to Kalen DeLoach with the 4.47 would be the next one. Another guy who just shined. You want to talk about a linebacker who ran 1700ths of a second faster than both the safeties from Miami, with the kind of in-state trash talk. It was beautiful to see. And another guy who did everything you want to see in the on-field drills. He said everything you want to hear in the interviews. And a guy out of high school, guys, a guy out of high school that came out and shined and had a brilliant Combine. I think Renardo Green will be the next one with a 4.50. Ended up with a 4.50 flat, which for him is big. I thought that was a great time for him. Renardo Green is a big physical corner. He's going to play a lot more up close to the line and less of that just pure man coverage out of the slot like Jerry Jones. So yeah, I thought that 4.50 for how he plays was big for him. I'm really confounded about Renardo Green and where he'll go in the draft. I think 3rd, 4th round is a safe bet. I'd be really disappointed if I saw him fall below that, but he's got a real good shot to be in the top 100, 125 picks. And stop me if you want to interject, but I mean, I could pretty much go through all of them. I think we've got 3 or 4 of them down already.
Yeah, you can pretty much keep going at this point, George, because I know I watched less of the NFL Combine than I have in 25 years or whatever. So I didn't see much of anything. I know that I saw a couple of tweets from James that he seemed to be pretty proud of the guys.
Man, he got some awesome coverage down there. If you haven't seen all the videos and stuff he put out, especially the stuff that he got to do post-production on, once he got back, he edited up some videos with it'd show the 40 and then a bit of some of their Combine workouts, and then it would get into their interview. and he's got some of the best footage I've ever seen. He got past the rows of all the reporters and got some clear footage of the different guys and got some great questions in there. So definitely go check that out over at Den Media Group. But yeah, I'm the opposite. It's the most I've watched the draft since probably 2014. You know, because we had 12 Florida State Seminoles there, so you had to watch, man.
Very cool. Anybody else that you think made some hay for themselves, maybe picked up a few bucks?
Oh man, you got to talk about our guy Johnny Wilson. Johnny Wilson just went off. He ran, and I'm trying to get to my thing here because I don't want to tell any of the times wrong. But I believe he ran about a 4.53 at 6'7", 87.5 inch reach, the longest reach ever recorded at the NFL Combine for a wide receiver. That's like unheard of crazy reach. That's like Cam Newton reached. I'm pretty sure that might have been like 3 inches longer than Cam Newton's, but huge, gargantuan reach. He ran a crazy shuttle time. I think it was like maybe I'll have to look it up, but top 10 shuttle times ever. For his size and speed, it was like just out of this world. So Johnny Wilson proved to everybody exactly what kind of freak athlete he is. And if he can become a consistent catcher of the football and get over those yips with kind of the easy ones over the middle, he's going to have a long NFL career. And hate it or not, and call it hyperbole, he's a Mike Evans type athlete. He's somewhere between Mike Evans and Kelvin Benjamin. We'll see where his career goes. Hopefully it's somebody somewhere comfortably in the middle there, and he can have a long NFL career.
Awesome stuff from George. The Renegade Report's your spot right here on YouTube, folks. Get on over there. We do Florida State football, and we're proud of this channel. And I love that we get together with George and typically Chris and James and bring it all together on Wednesday night. But the rest of the time, get on over to the Renegade Report. We appreciate George, because without George, Chris, and James, we don't have a channel, we don't have a show, and we don't keep this thing going past 250 episodes at this point. So appreciate y'all being here, the Voice of College Football. One way you can support us without spending a penny, you can financially support us by shopping on Amazon using the link that we've got in the description section of the video. And I promise you, it's exactly the same way you shop on Amazon now. If you use that link, it's going to act exactly the same. It's going to credit your account and all those things, but it is going to credit us and kick us a few bucks from Amazon, not from you, from Amazon. So you might as well do that. They've got plenty of cash there, I believe, at Amazon, based on what I know. All right, George. Spring ball coming up on March 19th. And also recruiting. You had mentioned that on your show that you delved into a little recruiting and picked up some nuggets there. So what's the latest?
Absolutely. Well, let's just let me finish that up so we don't leave the guys hanging, because we only made it about halfway through with the guys. Jared Verse ran a 4.58, so he had a great combine. He made some money. He'll probably be a first-round guy. Keon Coleman and Jaheim Bell both ran around a 4.61. For Jaheim Bell, that was a pretty dang good time. For Keon Coleman, a bit disappointed, but when you get on the field, he's over 20 miles per hour doing the gauntlet, which, if you know what the gauntlet is, that's where they run full speed across the field with balls coming from each side. He catches all his balls. Just an amazing, beautiful performance. And you really saw the game speed. He had the fastest speed reached on the go route, on a couple different routes. So the speed really showed up on the field. His 40 shouldn't hurt him too much. He'll still be either in the front of that second round or a first round guy. And then, of course, Braden Fisk. He was the biggest one. Well, I had to really come back here. He probably made the most money of anybody at the draft. As a 292-pound, I believe, defensive tackle, the dude runs a 4.78 40, which is unreal. And you want to talk about when you watch the on-field work and the dude turns the corner and comes running at the camera, it's a really scary sight. If you've seen the guy, I believe his name's Leon. He's a boxing referee, and his eyes bulge out of his head whenever he sees somebody get knocked out. Like, you read the emotions on his face, like my co-host Jen. Well, there was a coach or a GM or somebody out there on the field, and that's pretty much the look he made when he saw Braden Fisk come around, because the dude's the freak. 32+ inch vertical, just tore it up. I think that's everybody. I think I got everybody. I just didn't want to miss anybody, but really an amazing draft process, an amazing combine for Florida State, and yeah, you're gonna have 8 or 9 guys get drafted. Fabian Lovett killed the measurements, didn't work out. Of course, Jordan Travis was there. Uh, Without a boot, without a crutch, without anything. So walking around in his tennis shoes, but of course not quite working out. And we can get right into recruiting, man. Yeah, we were lucky enough to have Patrick Burnham on from Rivals, recruiting analyst over there at the Osceola, their Florida State site. And right there at the Renegade Report, we spent a whole hour and about 10 minutes just with me grilling him, asking him, comparing our opinions on all these different guys. Florida State, of course, has 4 guys committed. Tramel Jones, the quarterback at Mandarin High School, where our friend James Coleman is the running backs coach. And Tramel Jones is stocked just like Luke Kromenhoek last year, is just up and up and up and up. He was barely a 3-star when Florida State offers him. There's, a lot of sighs and grunts and mumbles from certain people. We've been super high on him from the jump, having an inside track, knowing James and kind of knowing the track he's on. And he's just absolutely blossomed. I believe he won the MVP. I believe it was Under Armour. Hopefully they don't sue me for libel if it was a Nike camp. Big all-star camps in Orlando here recently. Him and his cohorts, his buddy Jamie French, who unfortunately, I believe, has committed to Brian Hartline and the Ohio State Buckeyes, a guy who was committed to Alabama. Seemed like an Alabama-Florida State struggle. I really wanted him, but some things didn't go so great. Didn't have the best ever Florida State visits. And Brian Hartline comes into the picture, and all of a sudden he's an Ohio State Buckeye. Our only hope there, I'm really hoping that Hartline can take an NFL job or something, maybe before signing day. But unfortunately, that guy is an absolute menace recruiting wide receivers around the country.
And George,
especially
again,
down here.
The 25 class or the 26 class?
We're talking 25. Yes, sir.
I don't see him listed on the Ohio State list.
Jamie French?
I do not.
I could be mistaken. I might have jumped the gun, but I could have swore he committed today.
Okay. Maybe 247 did not update?
Yeah, hopefully I'm wrong there. I don't know, maybe the comment section could tell us. But officially, Florida State only has the 4 commits, with another being a defensive end named Javian Hilson. He's the number 4 defensive end in the nation. He's a beast. I'm really excited to get him in there. He's more of a in the vein of a Lamont Green Jr., somebody that I would expect to take a year or 2 to really get in there, but a really talented guy, and he's the number 4 DN in the nation for a reason. Ethan Pritchard, a 6'1", 200-pound linebacker who kind of just fits the mold for Randy Shannon, and it really works out perfect for him. So a nice little class going for Florida State. Their final commit, the 4th commit is a little old guy, inside offensive lineman, the number 1 in the nation, Solomon Thomas. So big time deal there. And yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe I was not sure what I was thinking about there.
Yeah, so Champs 99, nothing to worry about. Not going to Ohio State.
Maybe I got by a troll or something.
Sounds like Champs 99 might just be, and I don't know where he's going. I'm not following his recruitment, but it's March and we're looking at December. So I don't know that we're going to know.
Oh yeah, I'm talking out my butt. He just got a crystal ball. So excuse me for speaking on him. He has not committed there. It was just a crystal ball came out. And we have been talking about kind of he's a foregone conclusion to Ohio State at this point, as far as the commitment. So yeah, they're my apologies. I guess he hasn't pulled the trigger yet. Just a crystal ball for him to go there from the guy, Steve Wiltfong. Usually when he comes out and puts one out, it's because they're about to commit. But yeah, definitely glad we figured that out and we didn't just run straight with that.
There we go. So there's still hope there.
Gotta be careful on these YouTube streets. So y'all don't clip the first part without clip the part in the second part where we straighten it out. But yeah, Jamie French, crystal balled to go to Ohio State, unfortunately. But I would love to get him in there. But there's a ton of other guys we can talk about as far as targets across the country.
Yeah. So who would those guys be?
So American Heritage has, obviously proved to be really fruitful. Florida State gets Patrick Surtain in here, ends up coaching up like top 3 secondary in the nation. No big deal. Sends all these guys to the combine, brings in a just probably the best defensive haul in the entire nation for 2024. 4 or 5 blue chip guys, no big deal. And he's back at it again. There's a guy at American Heritage where he used to coach, Gregory Thomas. He's kind of unheralded. People didn't really know who he was until Florida State really got after him. But he's a priority for us. We want to get him in there. Patrick Surtain is planning to get him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him pop at any point in time. But a guy that really nobody's kind of recruiting like us, but for good reason. And you've seen Florida State really evaluate these guys and offer them early. Last year, the 3 big corners in the area, Florida State was the first to offer all 3 of them. Fredericks, Grimsley, and the one we ended up with, Knight, all offered before they were rated. So a big deal there, and you really love to see it. Another big target over there is a guy named Byron Lewis. If you talk to your channel after this, the Miami people will probably tell you he's sewed up in the bag. He's a Miami Hurricane. And, if you talk to a lot of people, they do have him leading. Ohio State is also in the mix for the 4-star running back. But FSU has, they've had him on campus. They're looking to get him on campus again here in March. So don't count us out. I could definitely see them getting a guy like Byron Lewis, who plays right into what Mike Norvell likes to do and the guys he puts in the NFL and uses in his offense. So you'd love to see it there. A guy that Florida State has gotten a crystal ball for is D lineman Myron Charles, a 4-star out of, I get this wrong, it's Port Lucie or something like that, but big time defensive lineman. Hopefully we could get to commit soon. That's the main ones right off the top of my head. Dontrell Glover, an offensive lineman, and is another guy that Florida State is really high on right now. Got a lot of momentum with. There's a lot of whispers out there. I wouldn't be surprised to see a commitment pop, but people got to understand when we talk about all these different names and the visits and things, it is early. It's super early. Like he was alluding to, you're not going to have a ton of commitments. The majority of your commitments, I think, similar to last year, will come more towards June and July. But right now, it's just about getting these guys on campus and getting in there. Zion Grady, some of these really top guys who are going to go right to the end of the recruiting process, Justice Terry, guys like that. They're doing a good job of getting them on campus. Same thing for trying to think. Jalen Wiggins, a guy that's committed to Florida that they've continued to recruit. They're going to get him on campus. A guy like Peyton Joseph, who's another top offensive lineman in the nation, who Florida has a very good chance of locking down. There's a lot of battles between the University of Florida and Florida State where it looks like Florida's kind of in the lead right now. They think the guy locked in. Another guy I forgot to mention from Mandarin, Hilton Drake Stubbs. Florida's really liking their chances of getting him any minute, and he may commit to Florida. But at the end of the day, if Florida State's number 2 in that one, and Florida fires their AD and their head coach at the end of the year, pretty good shot of Florida State moving up to number 1. So I like a lot of those. So just remember a lot of those names: Peyton Joseph, Hilton Drake Stubbs, Jalen Wiggins, because if all of a sudden Florida State drops out of there, Florida drops out of there, you look really, really good for that race.
Yeah, the Florida situation is one to keep an eye out for because of how just marginal the football team is, how brutal the schedule is. And if they approach this season with anything close to a recruiting class like they had going into last football season, which still ended up to be a really good class, but it was on its way of being a top 3 or 4 class in the country, and they let it come off the rails a bit. But the decision that's going to have to be made that, okay, we just had this brutal football season, fill in the win total, whatever that is. If it's 4-8, 5-7 with that schedule, and we've got a football coach that's had 3 consecutive losing seasons at Florida, and we just had this bad season, but he's on the verge of bringing in this great class, and we'll see if he can get it to the finish line. That's just going to be a difficult decision, I think, for them to make between the recruiting and what most likely is going to just flat out be a bad season. I'd be shocked if it's not, And I don't use that term very often, but I would be surprised if they can squeeze 6 wins out of that schedule.
It's tough, man. Those last 5 weeks of the schedule are brutal.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the 6 weeks,
Yeah.
but well, it's just one of those things. The schedule does not match the situation. And the comments that are coming out one after the other. Well, we're 18 months behind on NIL, and the fans, y'all just aren't supporting right, or whatever he said the other day. And it's just, it keeps on pouring on, and certain guys keep getting hired away. It just seems to me like he's at a point where it's like, I'm gonna do the best with what I got. It is what it is. I can't promise you guys jobs if you can get something somewhere else to go. I can't quit because I won't get my full pay. But I'm being a cynic. But I don't know. I haven't heard many optimistic Florida fans about the season either. So we'll see. They got to win that Miami game. If they come out and lose that Miami game off the jump, really both of those teams, if either of those teams wants to be taken seriously for the year, they got to win that one.
Yeah, in different ways. I totally get your point, and I agree. Florida, obviously, it's brutal, and so there's only so many wins you can find in that schedule. With Miami, it's more about, okay, can we take this program seriously in terms of progress? Not that they can't go out and defeat more than half of those marginal ACC teams, but to really have a strong season, you can't lose to what's going to be a fairly, I don't want to call them a bad team. They've got talent, but it's not a good Florida team by Florida standards. And then to your point about what we'll see in June and July, folks, if you're not into recruiting, and I'm not a recruiting guy, but by extension, bringing on guys like George and everybody else, I kind of do know recruiting because I'm constantly having these conversations with 4, 5, 6 people a day on recruiting. So I kind of soak it up. But if you look at any of the top players in the country and look at their visit list for late May into June, it's usually every weekend they're going to be somewhere. And usually once you get to the bottom of that list near the end of June, then a ton of them, not all of them, some of them want to sit on it for a long time, but some of them are like, okay, well, I just went to Florida State, Ohio State, Florida, Georgia, the last 4 weekends. Okay, now I know what I like, who I like, and you see those commitments start to roll in.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Season.
And it's earlier and earlier. And maybe this past year, everybody was freaking out because Florida State didn't have a bunch of guys rolling in June. We only had a couple. Well, lo and behold, July came out and we had, I forget what, 12, 13 commits, something unreal. That's when the class get made. But, with them moving the early signing period up to the beginning of December versus December 31st or whatever the new proposal is, who knows? It could pop a little earlier. So we're going to see some fireworks. It won't be that long. Believe me, once you get, March camp's already started for some guys. March, April, it won't be that long. May, June will be here, and we'll be getting some commitments earlier and earlier for sure.
All right, George. Well, I appreciate you being here. You know that. And George has so much going on at the Renegade Report, but he takes an hour plus out for us here every Wednesday night. So George, Chris, and James make it happen for us on Wednesday night here at the Voice of College Football. And I got nothing else on my list. Don't see anything in the chat. So unless you've got anything else you wanted to hit on.
I mean, we can discuss the latest dates on the court case if you want to get that on the record here. We could do that real quick. I believe yesterday.
I can add too much to the discussion, so this is all you again.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get a little quick summary of what's going on just for the people. If you're not following at the Renegade Report, get over there and follow me. Make sure you're following at Spear Addicts, at Dim Media Group. But yeah, also if you're just following this one, we want to make sure you guys are up to date on everything. The 2 dates you need to know are March 22nd. That's going to be the court date in North Carolina. That's going to be another one of those motions or amendments on the motion, rebuttal to the motion to dismiss by the ACC to try to get that thing going on up there. We're hoping, as a Florida State, from the Florida State perspective, you're hoping the judge will rule to stay that up there and see what happens in Florida, or just dismiss it outright. We probably won't be that lucky, but not, that would be the biggest thing you'll look for there. Just hope for a stay or dismissal. If not, it's just going to be another procedural issue, or maybe they get an actual hearing scheduled from that one up there. April 9th, the date in Florida, they have actually scheduled the first hearing to begin to preside over this case in the state of Florida, which we believe is going to be the Court of Precedents for this thing, the one that matters, because it's actually printed there in the grant of rights, the document in question, even though the AC says, well, you're not supposed to be able to see it. Whatever they say, regardless, it's still in there. So now that you know what's going on April 9th, that's where you can look back at March 22nd and really see how important that date is. Because if for whatever reason they decide to dismiss or stay in favor of watching what's going to happen in Florida, bam, you got a chance at settlement talks, because a judge could order a discovery April 9th. Like, you're going to have an actual hearing and start hearing the case. So that would incentivize, talks just big time. So things are really heating up. So look, March 22nd, look to see what happens in that North Carolina court date. Personally, in my opinion, I'm not getting my hopes up. But Jen, and I think Chris and some other people think there's a pretty damn good chance that that thing could get dismissed, or possibly another thing is it could get pushed federal. That judge could, that could be what he thinks the route it should go. So really interested to see what happens up there. Like I said, North Carolina on March 22nd, and then again in Florida on April 9th. They have an actual hearing set to begin.
According to ESPN's Dan Murphy, he mentioned that legal chaos could ensue if both cases in their respective states do not receive stay orders, effectively creating a, quote, race to judgment, as the first decision made in either case then would be the final one.
Makes sense. So we're hoping for that stay. The best case would be the stay in North Carolina, but in terms of it becoming a race, the fact that the hearing's already scheduled in Florida and they're still going through the motions up there, going through the motions to dismiss and motions to seal, and how the trial will actually go forward if it does, that makes me feel good about Florida's chances as far as being ahead. It just feels like, whatever, any kind of metaphor you want to put down there, it seems like Florida has the best shot. They got the best shot to be the court of record. So we'll see what happens, but that's the ACC's biggest thing, is to get it up there in North Carolina. But the way the NCAA has been ruling, the way the Supreme Court and Congress and everything has been ruling in kind of partisan ways against the NCAA and against certain things, that it's not looking good for the ACC and ESPN, in my opinion. But yeah, there's a chance it could go federal. There's a chance we could have a settlement in the next couple of weeks. But April 9th, that's a real date. That's, that's almost 2 weeks before the spring game. So
well, it certainly
keep our eyes peeled.
And this might just be because I've heard more from the Florida State side than I have from the ACC side, because who's reporting on the ACC side, right, in a certain sense, but that the powers that be in Florida, whether that be politicians from the very top and certainly from the legal aspect of it, versus in North Carolina, there seems to be, and this might be reflected in exactly what you're talking about, that Florida is moving this along a lot quicker. There just seems to be much more support in Florida among the powers that be, the movers and shakers, again, politicians and legal types, to make this a win for Florida State. Then there's an investment in North Carolina to stand up for the ACC and to make it work for them. And it just appears that way.
No, absolutely. That's why, I keep bringing up the fact that UNC flipped their position on this thing. And the president of that school comes out and basically says, yeah, something's got to change. Basically mirroring exactly what Mike Alford said the year before, that they were giving him so much trouble about, and Wake Forest as well. That's kind of like, to me, that's the writing on the wall for it. But no, I agree 100%. And when you look at the Sunshine State laws, that's another thing our Bill Farley uncovered. Making these FOIA requests, he's figured out that the dealings between Florida State and the state are protected under that. So not going to get into too many conspiracy theories here, but as far as to your point about the state of Florida wanting that to be a win for Florida State and how it's, if they did want to help in any type of way, it would be completely sealed and unbeknownst to the public in any way, and it'd be totally legal. So the Sunshine Laws really, really, uh, in every way, sort of kind of work out for Florida State here, unless they have some kind of dirt along the way. But the way Florida State does business, the way they've done from square one, they've done it since it came through Florida legislature. They know about the Sunshine Laws, so they're pretty much protected there. You would like to hope. There's always going to be dummies out there, but for the most part, all these documents were initially penned and filed by somebody who knew that under the Sunshine State law, it all could be subpoenaed and there's nothing they could do. It's all going to be out in the open. So that's the difference between here and the ACC, who thought they could hide all their secrets and it was never going to come out and they're going to be able to hide the grand rights. So there's only one of us that's, the shady character and the mob and everything else. One of us is doing everything else. So,
folks, we appreciate it if you hit the like button and check out George on the Renegade Report. So what's the schedule look like for the rest of the week?
The rest of the week, I don't have anything I can announce as far as guests, but make sure to catch us Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and then Sunday, not sure on the time. We're trying to work that out with the guest, but sometime early Sunday afternoon. But again, Friday at 7 Eastern, and of course we do every Tuesday at 7 Eastern as well. Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, and right there on the screen, it's at the Renegade Report. Super easy to find. Come check us out. Again, go check out the episode we did with Pat Burnham. From the Osceola. We really got into the nuts and bolts of recruiting and all kinds of fun stuff over there. So go check that out.
And every Wednesday, of course, right here, folks, bring a friend or two or 50 back with you next week. And we will see you for Florida State Seminoles live. I'm up next on the Miami channel, Talking Canes. Come on over and support, trash talk, troll, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. It's all fun. So come on over to the Miami channel. We rev it up here at 7 o'clock Eastern time in just a few minutes. George, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and have a great week.
Go hear how amazing Cam Ward is. I mean, he really is a stud quarterback, but they're excited, buddy. Looking good. That's a real practices going on over there in Coral Gables.